The chairwoman of the Asia Pacific Subcommittee on House Foreign Relations. Ms. Kim is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to congratulate you on holding this very first full committee hearing on a great topic, and I look forward to working with you as chairman of the committee. And I also want to thank all of our witnesses for joining us to examine how we can make community banking great. Today, I'm concerned about the decline of our community banking in our country. You know, since the 1980s, the number of banks in America has declined from 18,000 banks to less than 5,000 banks operating today. You know, what that means is that less banks in our communities means less competition, less access to capital for small businesses, and less essential banking services for communities that need it. So let me ask the first question to Ms. Romero. You know, can you give us your view on how we got to this point of having 13,000 less banks today than what we had in the 1980s?
I think it's accumulation of looking at this industry from a one-size-fits-all approach. When you look at the compliance costs and the regulatory burden that have just been added on in the last 2 years, over 4,000 pages of new regulation, that comes at a cost.
Can you tell me, how much does it cost for a community bank to comply with state and federal regulations?
It's significant. I mean, the stories that we've heard today of, you know, banks adding more and more compliance officers, those aren't folks on the ground helping small businesses get to the next level, figuring out how to finance and transition that business to the next generation. And that's the shift that I think we really need to focus on.
I share with you, and my sense is also that the small banks are more worried about complying with regulations and focusing on, you know, what they need, you know, how to comply with those regulations than focusing on what they need to do best, and that is making those capital available for businesses and for worthy projects that they want to fund. Mr. Romero, I do have concerns about the supervisory appeals process as well, that it's not being very transparent and having very little oversight. So can you give us your perspectives on how we could improve the supervisory appeals process and make it more transparent?
I appreciate the question because that's all we're looking for is transparency, and very much appreciate Chairman Hill's bill that would create this appeal process and examination transparency by looking to the FFIEC to have a independent approach in which bankers can raise their questions and challenge the findings.
Sure. And Ms. Marshall, in your testimony, you speak about the need to facilitate community bank innovation through third-party partnerships. Can you speak on how greater regulatory certainty and clarity with third-party partnerships can help small community banks, and how can it help consumers have greater access to many banking services?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And I think the consumer is a large part of this conversation because they are demanding that they utilize new products and tools and services to meet their banking needs. They want that, they expect that. And so community banks are needing to keep up because, quite frankly, they may not be able to innovate themselves, but that partnership gives them that opportunity to continue to serve their customers and attract future customers. But the ability to do so is going to be very the successful ability to do so is going to be very important as we look at improving and enhancing current third-party risk management guidance. We need a regulatory framework that is clear-cut, a roadmap that gives the rules of the road for banks to be able to follow, and not just them, but the third parties themselves, as well as the consumer. You need clear guidance, we need clear definitions, and we need it to be a transparent process in how regulators and bankers and quite frankly the third parties can facilitate those conversations about what that looks like for the next generation, because it is here to stay. Sure. And I think it's very important for the vitality of our industry and meeting consumer needs.
Thank you. Ms. Owens, let me ask you a question. And you know, in my home district in Southern California, I regularly meet and hear from small business, the banks, of the need to enact the safe banking legislation. So can you talk about that, how enacting safe banking legislation can help local community banks?
Banks do need good legislation but it needs to be clear, it needs to be tailored, it needs to be very thoughtful in its implementation and timelines.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
Thank you, Chairman.